we light our chalice, as chalices are lit in our brother and sister congregations across the world. And as we light this chalice today, we will hear words from David Breeden. On this third Sunday of Advent, may we find peace inside ourselves. May we be peace for those around us. And may we renew our commitment to bring peace with justice to our community and the world. May there be peace. Welcome. Welcome to this meeting place today. We gather not in Sevenoaks, as we have for the last 9 months or so, virtually. We gather virtually today at the Dover Unitarian Church, one of my three congregations. And I'm delighted to be back here in the meeting house, which I've been to very rarely over the last 9 months for obvious reason. And whilst I am here, we are, of course, gathering virtually. On this, the third Sunday of Advent. We're nearly at Christmas, but we're not there yet. Now, some might say that Christmas is delayed this year, or it's postponed. It's not quite happening as it should be. I don't really hold with that. Christmas is Christmas. But Christmas is not the be-all and end-all of this season. Nor is it the only time of reflection, the only commemoration from a religious or a spiritual perspective. We are currently at the time of Hanukkah. Hanukkah, commemoration and reflection for Jewish people on the building of a new temple. It's a Jewish tradition that goes back a very, very long way. It's a time of hope. It's a time of new beginnings. Fantastic recognition of this time of year. And next week, of course, we'll be entering solstice or Yule, where we have the shortest day and the longest night. A time to remember the darkness and the light together, both important elements. And we are in uncertain times. We still are. Yet we have seen good hope this week. The first vaccine has now been given. Fantastic news. Yet we remain, for various reasons, under different levels of lockdown tiers across the country. We're in tier 3, here in Kent and here in Dover, particularly necessary. And there is frustration and there is impatience for many. And there is joy and there is hope for others. And there is a balance of both for most of us. A conflicting range of emotions that are firing around us. And this is Advent. Part of 4 weeks of preparation, of reflection, of finding our true selves in the darkness, and thinking about the light ahead of us. This time, this space are yours. I bid you a very warm welcome. On this third Advent Sunday, we light our third candle. We have lit candles for hope and for joy. And tradition suggests this third Advent Sunday, we light a candle for love. Let us join together in song. Our first hymn today is by Lyanne Michell, Spirit of Earth, Root, Stone and Tree. If you had the Purple Book, It would be hymn number 147, but the words will be on your screen. Our first reading is from the Russian Orthodox tradition. It's a story, and it is a Christmas story. However, it's also a story to ponder, to reflect upon, on this third Sunday of Advent. This is the story of the fox and his gift. It was the darkest night, and the night visitors had gone their way, leaving their gifts, the gifts of kings, the gifts of shepherds. The baby was asleep, and the parents were resting after what was a very long day. There were animals in the stable, and all was quiet, save for the swishing of the tail of the horse, the slow chewing of the cow, and the pecking of the hens. Suddenly, there was movement in the shadow. It was the fox. "What's an animal like you doing in a place like this?" said the horse. "I've come to bring my gift for the child," said the fox. The other animals had woken and looked with amazement at the fox. "What can an animal like you bring to a child such as this?" said the cow. The fox was silent, and then he spoke. "This child, when he is fully grown, will need to know when to lie low in the dark shadows and when to move out into the light, wide-open spaces. This is the gift that I bring." The animals looked at each other and laughed. They laughed at the thought of such a thing. But when they stopped laughing and they turned to look again into the dark shadows of the stable, they realized that the fox had disappeared once more into the night, having left his gift for the child. the story of the fox and his gift. Let us come together in a time of prayer and stillness on this third Sunday of Advent, this continued time of waiting. We hear again a prayer from our first Sunday. As the shadows lengthen, we enter into a season in which we dare to cross the threshold into the dark. Guide us, universal Spirit, you who are discovered in the silence of the cave and the darkness of the womb, to learn the mysteries of life that are obscured by bright lights and buzzing brains. With creatures all across this planet, help us to slow our heart rate, lower our activity level, and find a safe place to hunker down when all the world's pressures are there to hurry us up. Yes, in this Advent season, may we slow down for Christmas, that we might attend deeply to the birth of the Christ-like within each of us. May this be the gift we offer to ourselves and to our loved ones, as we wait in holy darkness for the surprising birth of the divine. Eternal Spirit, Mother, Father, ever present if only we have eyes to see, we stand in awe in the presence of the universe. In its proper time, may the mystery unfurl before us. Though fettered by our material desires, may the depths of the Spirit uphold and guide us. May the great gifts of the earth sustain us. May the universe forgive our faults and our follies, and may we in equal measure be forgiving. May we ever turn our eyes toward the light, to dispel the darkness which would engulf us. We give thanks for the bounty of the universe, which abounds with power and glory beyond our greatest imaginings. If you wish to, I welcome you to join with me in the last prayer, following the words on the screen. Eternal Spirit, we meet together that our lives may be transformed. May our misdeeds be washed from us, and may we be cleansed of our wayward deeds and thoughts. Each of us knows in our hearts we are not perfect. We have let ourselves down. We seek to make amends. May we have truth in our inner souls, and may we recognize the joys of living lives in love. May we seek the presence of the divine to restore us. Heal us, O Spirit. Make us anew. Amen. Our second reading is biblical. But before I move on to that, I think I should just point out that the backgrounds behind me in the first reading and on this one were painted by the late David Embry and feature in the hall down here in Dover. There's one for each season. They're fantastic. This is autumn, and you saw winter earlier. So our reading is biblical. And it's from the book of Luke, and it's the Bible story about Jesus meeting the angel Gabriel and being told she's going to become pregnant.
It's a difficult story, but there is a sense to it that helps build a discussion about a pondering of what's going to happen next. Now, the version I'm going to read this morning is not a traditional biblical telling. It's from John Henson's Biblical Interpretations, As Good as New, which is a wonderful retelling of the Bible, but thankfully not as modern as text speak or things that you can't quite understand. Rowan Williams loves John Henson's book, and I can't think of any better praise for it. So this is from the book of Luke. God sent Gabriel to Nazareth in the province of Galilee, and Gabriel had a message for Mary, a young woman engaged to Joseph, a descendant of David. Gabriel came into the house and said, "Pleased to meet you, Mary. You are a special person, and God thinks highly of you." But Mary was nervous, trying to think what this was all about. So Gabriel said, "Nothing to worry about, Mary. God is your friend. You're going to have a baby boy, and you're to call him Jesus. He will be famous, and he will be known as God's likeness. And God will make him the true successor of David. He'll have the permanent care of God's people, and they will go on increasing more and more." Now Mary said, "I don't see how that can be. I'm not married yet." And Gabriel said, "God's Spirit has it all arranged. She will be responsible. God's likeness has to be very special." Mary said, "Here then I am, ready to help God all I can. May your words come true." Then God's agent, Gabriel, left. From John Henson's retelling of the story of the Bible, from his Bible interpretation, Good as New. Our second hymn today, building on that image of Mary, pondering, being patient, putting thought to the future. This is Andrew Hill's Stillness, creeping through this place. The words will be on your screen.
Softly come and gently
The challenge, and if I admit it, the enjoyment of working on a sermon is the call to bring together long-held sacred truths, stories of reflection and learning, together with a link to the world in which we live today. Now, not having a clue about what might be going on in the world at times can be very frustrating. And in the last 9 months, we felt there had been a real monotony and certainty, and yet massive uncertainty too. No one really knew what was happening next, even though we feared it would be exactly the same as the day before. And this week, with the vaccine, this week, with other things going on, we have Brexit, we have discussions around that, we know there is massive change ahead, of difference, of variation. We don't quite know how any of this is going to manifest, for good or not so good. We cannot say how everybody will be affected. We may not even know truly about how we think of these things ourselves. All I do know is that driving down here to Dover today, I drove past 6 miles of lorries taking up the whole of one lane and just parked, not moving. January could be difficult. However, with the vaccine, with other possible things, there is hope of new life, of light and hope in things that are going on. For many, we are trying to grapple with what is positive and what we might take forward. And it's important right now in Advent to take that step to think and to prepare, to be patient. This is the third Sunday in Advent, and this Christian festival of Advent comes from the Latin adventus, which means the coming, the arrival. It's a festival in its own right. It's a time to prepare, to think about the future, to think, yes, about the promise of Christmas, but it isn't Christmas itself. Reflection and preparation is a strong theme in this tradition, as it is in many other traditions. Now, our second reading today, that story of the angel Gabriel appearing to Mary, will be familiar to many of us, although perhaps not to all. It was not said to have happened at Advent. All children of God, all babies, take 9 months to appear, not 4 weeks. But the theme it represents sits very squarely at this time. What is happening in that story is that Mary is told that she will become pregnant and that her son will be called Jesus. In Jesus will be all the things to show that he is the Son of God, as the story says, according to Christian tradition. Yet Mary is puzzled, as perhaps anyone might be on being told such a story. Can you really imagine it? Mary is puzzled and wants to know more, to better understand the message that Gabriel is telling her. Pregnant? Really? I'm not even married. How can that be? Now, Gabriel simply tells her not to worry, that God has decided it will happen, that the Spirit will arrange for all the messy details, because that's what the Spirit does. She moves in mysterious ways, as someone else once said. But this now becomes a different story. This is not the story of a travelling. It's not the story of a stable. It's not the story of a birth. It's no shepherds, there's no wise men, there's no cattle a lowing. All of that is 9 months away. It is the anticipation. It is the waiting, the wondering, the uncertainty that we experience at this time of Advent, before the festival of Christmas. Now, this is, of course, a classic story, and in true sacred text form, the story of a birth foretold is a mix of the spiritual and the human. There is a deep sense of mystery and beloved communion between God and Mary's soon-to-be baby. This is the spiritual God, the angel, the Spirit, a mysterious supernatural event, and the promise of a God on earth. Yet the human aspect of the story is so close to the surface. The story of Mary, of a young woman going about her business and being confronted with an impossible promise, a bolt from the blue regarding her role in the delivery of goodness to the world, something Mary must both accept and take in to her life. Mary will never be the same after this. That transition to motherhood will have been recognised by the writers of Luke's Gospel as being a key change in a woman's life. Not all will know it. Over 50% of the population will certainly never experience it. But it's of course a significant step in many women's lives. And in the time this was written, it would have made the difference between a girl and a woman. So the human implications of the story are great, no matter the spiritual content. Now, as any woman would do in such a situation, Mary is now preparing. Mary is reflecting on the future, wondering about her role in the future of her child, waiting for the future. But Mary is not weak. She is not meek and mild. Mary accepts the situation as it is and begins to prepare for the future. One of the strongest and most powerful figures in the Jesus story. There is so much to be learned here. It's this mix of the spiritual and the human that can be so powerful. We're thinking and preparing for changes in ourselves, not just the Christian story of a newborn child. This is a time to consider how we connect to our physical lives and our actions with the mystical and the spiritual. Now, the story in Luke of the angel speaking to Mary is just the start of her journey. Shortly after the passage we heard, Mary reflects further. She sings a song. Now, the version in the regular Bible is good, but this for me is where the John Henson rewrite really comes into its own. Here's that revised version of Mary's song. The words we imagine Mary singing as she ponders the birth of her holy child that she is carrying. I sense the greatness of God, who makes my joy complete. God smiled at me and asked for my help, and everyone will dance with glee at the wonderful thing happening to me. What a God! In every age, God aids the good, upsetting the plans of the arrogant. See how the powerful fall off their perches. Honour for the modest, a banquet for the hungry. The rich get nothing and slink away. God keeps his promises to friends and companions, Abraham, Sarah, and their like today. Now, those that know the older version will also hear those opening lines as, my soul doth magnify the Lord, and my spirit rejoices. I knew this song so well as a child. I was a chorister, not in a Unitarian church, not many choristers in Unitarian churches, but I was a chorister in a Unitarian church, and the song is known as the Magnificat. And in those days, the Magnificat was sung at every single morning service. Magnificat in the morning, Nunc Dimittis in the evening. My soul doth magnify the Lord, and my spirit rejoices. What an amazing reflection. Mary has been presented with one of the most terrifying and puzzling things. Yet on reflecting, she determines that the best way to approach this is with joy in her heart. And then that crucial part. In every age, God aids the good, upsetting the plans of the arrogant. See how the powerful fall off their perches. Honour for the modest, a banquet for the hungry. The rich get nothing and slink away. It's a real lesson for Advent. Perhaps a real lesson for Advent 2020 in various places around the world, including here. The challenges we face on a personal, local, national and international level. These are the challenges the universe presents us with. And these are the challenges that life, or for some God, will leave with us. And God is expecting a little help with putting things right. We're not at liberty to sit back and let someone else do all the heavy lifting. It is, of course, for us to help things get better. The plans of the arrogant will only be upset if the tolerant and loving make clear their objections. The modest will only be honoured if we, as human beings, connected to one another by the divine, make damn sure the modest are honoured. By us, by all. And there will only be a banquet for the hungry if we prepare one. These are the messages we might hear in the story of Mary, in the story of preparation for Christmas and beyond. As we watch the changes in our lives, these are values that may hold us firm. There are many things going on in our lives at the moment, certainties and uncertainties. It is for us to identify the actions we support, the actions we take to meet the needs of the community and of others. Advent is a time for preparation for the future. It's a time we might spend contemplating how we can bring hope to the world, how we can deliver the promise of the divine on earth. In our first story, we heard of the fox and the need he saw of being able to hide in the dark a while before heading into the light. Now, we've all been hiding in the dark a while for a good few months now. But Advent is a specific time, a bit of the dark the fox was talking about. Advent is the time when we light a few candles in the darkness, but we know all the same that the darkness is still around us. Yet in the safety of this cover, we might prepare ourselves. Out of the glare of Christmas, out of the glare of 2021, there are big changes ahead. We can be part of it. We are part of it. We prepare. We reflect on our own lives and the love we bring to others around us. Advent. The story of Mary, the story of the fox. All these things might help us recognize the eternal mysteries and truths in the world. At this time of hope, with a vaccine, at this time of uncertainty with lockdown tears, at this time of frustration at how Christmas will be, at this time of confusion over whether we agree with what we're hearing from our leaders and others at times. But let us reflect and let us prepare, as Mary did. Let us come together now in a time of stillness and quiet. As we settle our bodies, perhaps closing our eyes, focusing on our breath. I shall speak some words and strike the singing bowl, and we'll come together in stillness and quiet together. The silence will be broken by music to continue our reflections. On this third Sunday of Advent, a time of love, thoughts of patience, thoughts of preparation. Some words by Leo Tolstoy.
Everybody thinks of changing humanity, and nobody thinks of changing themselves. Everybody thinks of changing humanity, and nobody thinks of changing themselves.
Some closing words on this third Sunday of Advent. May wisdom and generosity be ours in this season of anticipation, passing through its busy days with love in our hearts, wonder in our souls, and light in our minds. May there be peace amongst us all, now and forever. Amen.